It was an average afternoon in the quiet town of Riverside, and Jake Thompson, a 16-year-old high school student, walked home from school with his backpack slung over one shoulder. His mind was occupied with thoughts of upcoming tests and unfinished homework. The street was bustling with cars, and the air carried the usual hum of a busy weekday. As he reached the corner near the town's main intersection, something caught his eye. An elderly woman stood at the curb, gripping her cane, her eyes darting back and forth between the speeding cars. She looked hesitant, her frail frame barely shifting as she tried to gauge when it would be safe to cross. Jake slowed his pace, watching for a moment. The world around him carried on. Cars honked, people walked past, but no one stopped to help. His mother had always told him that kindness costs nothing, and he'd always believed that small gestures could mean everything to someone in need. Stepping forward, Jake offered a gentle smile. "Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like some help crossing?" The woman turned to him, her wrinkled face softening with relief. "Oh, thank you, young man," she said, her voice warm but weak. "I've been waiting here for quite some time, but my legs aren't as quick as they used to be." Jake nodded, adjusting his backpack before offering his arm. "Don't worry, I've got you." Together, they carefully crossed the street. Jake kept a steady pace, making sure she didn't feel rushed, shielding her slightly from the impatient rush of traffic. As they reached the other side, the woman let out a small breath of relief. "You're a good boy," she said, looking up at him with a grateful smile. "It's rare to find kindness like yours these days. Thank you." Jake shrugged, smiling back. "No problem, ma'am. Take care." She gave him one last nod before continuing on her way, slowly but safely. Jake didn't think much of it as he resumed his walk home, already shifting his thoughts back to school and the rest of his evening. Little did he know, this seemingly small act of kindness would lead to something that would change his life forever. The following afternoon, as Jake walked home from school, he felt the same familiar routine settle in. The day had been uneventful. Another pop quiz, another lunch period spent joking around with friends. But as he approached his front porch, something unusual caught his eye. Lying on the doormat was a plain white envelope, neatly folded, with his name written across it in elegant cursive handwriting. There was no return address, no postage stamp, just his name, Jake Thompson, written with a steady, deliberate hand. Curious, he bent down and picked it up, glancing around as if expecting someone to step forward and claim responsibility. But the street was quiet, the usual sounds of rustling leaves and distant traffic, the only noise around him. Frowning, he tore open the envelope and unfolded a handwritten letter inside. The words, carefully inked in dark blue, made his eyes widen as he read, "Dear Jake, you may not remember me, but I'm the woman you helped cross the street yesterday. My name is Margaret Whitmore. I wanted to take a moment to thank you for your kindness. What you didn't know is that I am not just any elderly woman. I am someone who has spent her entire life in this community, building something meaningful. I have run a successful business for many years, and now I'm looking for the right person to continue my work. I've spent years searching, hoping to find someone with compassion, integrity, and a willingness to help others. In our brief interaction, you showed me all of those things. That is why I would like to invite you to my office tomorrow. I have an opportunity for you, one that could change your future. Please consider this carefully. Warm regards, Margaret Whitmore." Jake's heart pounded as he read the letter over again, just to make sure he hadn't misunderstood. "Business? My own business?" he muttered under his breath, still in disbelief. Margaret had a successful small business, a local art gallery, one she had nurtured for decades. But with no family interested in taking it over, she had been searching for the right person to inherit her legacy. And somehow, after a single act of kindness, she had chosen him. Jake sat down on the porch steps, staring at the letter. Just yesterday, he was an ordinary high school kid, stressing about exams and planning for college. Now, he had been offered the chance of a lifetime. One small moment. One selfless act. And now, his life was about to change forever. The next morning, Jake woke up before sunrise, his mind still reeling from the letter he had received. He had barely been able to sleep, constantly wondering whether this was real or some kind of elaborate mistake. He wasn't anyone special, just a regular high school kid trying to get through life. Yet here he was, standing in front of Margaret Whitmore's art gallery, a place he had walked past dozens of times but never entered. The glass doors reflected the bright morning sun, and behind them, walls were adorned with stunning paintings, sculptures, and handcrafted pieces that exuded elegance. Taking a deep breath, Jake pushed open the door, the soft chime of a bell announcing his arrival. Margaret was already waiting for him, seated near a grand painting of a sunset. She smiled warmly as he stepped inside. "I'm so glad you came, Jake," she said, gesturing for him to sit. Jake hesitated for a moment before settling into the leather chair across from her. "I have to be honest," he admitted. "I still don't understand why you chose me." Margaret chuckled. "Because kindness is rare, Jake, and when I met you, I saw something special, something more valuable than business experience." As they sat in her office, Margaret began to tell him the story of the gallery. She had opened it nearly 40 years ago, determined to create a space where local artists could display their work. Over time, it had grown into a respected community hub, a place where talent thrived. "I built this from nothing," Margaret said, her voice filled with pride. "But now, I need someone who can carry it forward, someone with a fresh perspective and a passion for helping others." Jake listened intently, admiring the way she spoke about the gallery as if it were her life's greatest masterpiece, but he still couldn't shake the doubt creeping in. "I'm just a kid," he thought. "I don't know anything about running a business." As if reading his mind, Margaret smiled. "Jake, experience can be taught, but character, integrity, and vision, those are things that can't be learned in a textbook. You already have them." She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small set of keys, setting them on the table between them. Jake's eyes widened. "Are those—" Margaret nodded. "The keys to the gallery. If you're willing to take this journey, I want you to have them." Jake's heart pounded in his chest. He looked at the keys, then at Margaret, and back at the gallery outside the office window. "This is a big decision," he said hesitantly. "What if I fail?" Margaret leaned forward, her gaze steady. "Then you'll get back up and try again. That's what life is about, Jake. And besides, I'll be here to mentor you every step of the way." Jake swallowed hard. A part of him wanted to run, to walk away from something so huge. But another part of him, the one that had always dreamed of doing something meaningful, wanted to stay. After a long pause, he reached for the keys. "I'll do it," he said, his voice steady. Margaret's face lit up with pride. "Then, Jake, welcome to your new future." The moment Jake accepted the keys, his life changed. He had no business experience, no background in art, and no idea how to run a gallery. But he had determination. And that, Margaret assured him, was enough to start. His first few weeks were overwhelming. He had to memorize artist contracts, manage inventory, coordinate exhibits, and balance budgets, all while still being a high school student. Some days, the stress felt unbearable. Late nights turned into early mornings, and there were times he wanted to give up. But every time doubt crept in, Margaret was there, guiding him with patience and wisdom. "You're going to make mistakes," she told him one evening as they sat in her office, going over gallery expenses. "That's part of learning. But the important thing is that you keep going. No great success ever came without struggle." Taking those words to heart, Jake pushed himself harder. He studied everything: marketing strategies, customer engagement, artist negotiations, and event planning. Slowly but surely, he started putting his own ideas into action. One of his first major changes was introducing Young Artists Night, a monthly event where high school and college students could showcase their work for free. It was a risky move. Margaret had always focused on established artists, but Jake believed in giving young talent a chance. The first event had only a handful of attendees, but Jake didn't get discouraged. He spent the next month spreading the word on social media, reaching out to local schools, and collaborating with youth art programs. By the second event, the gallery was packed. Parents, teachers, and art lovers flooded in, eager to support young artists. The energy was electric, and Jake could see the impact he was making, not just for the gallery, but for the community. Margaret watched with pride as Jake grew into his role. "You're doing things I never even imagined," she admitted one day. "This gallery isn't just surviving, it's thriving under your leadership." As the months passed, Jake's confidence soared. He rebranded the gallery's social media, attracting an even wider audience. He secured sponsorship deals with local businesses, brought in more diverse artists, and even began selling art pieces online to expand the gallery's reach. The once struggling gallery had now become a cultural hub, drawing in bigger crowds, high-profile artists, and media attention. For the first time in his life, Jake felt something he had never truly experienced before, a sense of purpose. He wasn't just running a business, he was building a legacy. A year had passed, and the gallery was no longer just a quiet art space in a small town. It was a thriving cultural hub, attracting art lovers, collectors, and young creatives eager to make their mark. Jake had poured everything into it, his time, his creativity, and his relentless drive to succeed. The once empty halls were now buzzing with energy. New artists found a platform through his Young Artists Night, and local businesses collaborated to sponsor events. The gallery's reputation had grown, and with it, so had Jake's confidence. One afternoon, as Jake sat in his office reviewing the latest revenue reports, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered, expecting another routine inquiry about an upcoming exhibit. "Jake Thompson?" a warm yet professional voice asked. "Yes, speaking," he replied. "My name is Rachel Myers, and I'm a journalist with the Riverside Tribune. We've been following your incredible journey over the past year, and we'd love to feature you in an upcoming article about young entrepreneurs transforming their communities." Jake blinked, momentarily stunned. "Wait, you want to feature me?" Rachel chuckled. "Of course. What you've done here is inspiring. You took a business that was fading and turned it into a centerpiece of the community. People are talking, Jake. You've made an impact." He glanced at the framed picture of Margaret on the wall, the woman who had believed in him before he even believed in himself. "I'd be honored," he finally said, a slow smile spreading across his face. The interview took place the following week inside the gallery itself. As Rachel walked through the space, admiring the artwork and the crowd that had gathered for yet another successful event, she turned to Jake. "Did you ever imagine this happening?" she asked, recorder in hand. Jake exhaled, taking in the sight of people admiring the pieces on display, chatting excitedly about the artists, and feeling at home in a space he had helped build. "I dreamed of success," he admitted. "But I never thought it would come this way. I never thought a simple act of kindness would lead me here." Rachel smiled. "And what do you think Margaret would say if she saw all this now?" Jake's gaze softened. "She'd tell me she knew it all along." The article was published the following Sunday, and it exploded. Local businesses praised him, artists reached out for collaborations, and within weeks, investors started calling, offering funding to expand the gallery into multiple locations. Suddenly, what had started as a small-town art space had the potential to become something even bigger. Margaret, now retired and enjoying her well-earned rest, visited the gallery one last time before moving to Florida. She took Jake's hands in hers, her eyes full of pride. "You turned this into something even I couldn't have imagined," she said. This was always meant to be yours. Jake swallowed the lump in his throat, nodding. I couldn't have done it without you. Margaret smiled knowingly. No, Jake. You were always meant to do this. I just gave you the keys. As she walked out of the gallery, Jake looked around, realizing just how much had changed, not just in the business, but in himself. This wasn't just a success story. This was just the beginning. The years had passed, but Jake never forgot where it all began. The gallery had grown beyond anything he had imagined, with multiple locations across the country, each dedicated to giving young artists a platform to showcase their talent. The once small business he inherited had turned into a movement, inspiring thousands of creatives to believe in their work and pursue their dreams. On a bright afternoon, Jake stood in front of a crowd of young entrepreneurs, all eager to hear his story. Some of them had faced struggles just like he had, and others were looking for guidance, searching for that spark that would ignite their own journey. He looked at them with the same passion that had driven him all those years ago. I never thought helping someone cross the street would lead me here, he said, smiling. But life has a way of surprising you. Kindness has a ripple effect. You never know what it might bring back to you. The audience listened intently as he recounted his journey, from that moment with Margaret to building an empire that stretched far beyond what either of them had dreamed. There were times I doubted myself, times when I thought I wasn't ready, Jake admitted. But Margaret saw something in me before I saw it in myself. That's why I believe in paying it forward, because sometimes all someone needs is a chance. As the event ended, Jake walked through the main gallery, pausing in front of a new exhibit featuring works from underprivileged artists, an initiative he had personally funded. Their pieces lined the walls, vibrant and full of emotion, telling stories of struggle, hope, and perseverance. One young artist approached him hesitantly. Mr. Thompson, your story gave me the courage to submit my work. I never thought I'd have a chance to be here. Jake smiled, remembering the uncertainty he had once felt. You belong here, he said, shaking the artist's hand, and this is just the beginning for you. As he stepped back and took in the sight of the bustling gallery, he realized that his success wasn't just about him. It was about the lives he had touched, the doors he had opened, and the legacy he was leaving behind. The screen slowly faded to black, the words appearing softly across the screen. Sometimes, all it takes is one act of kindness to change the course of your life.